It is 10:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Today at the NFL Combine in Indy, defensive backs and tight ends work out at Lucas Oil Stadium. It was a quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers meeting with the media this morning. Around the NFL, the Saints are reportedly releasing safety Marcus May. The move would only save New Orleans over $1 million in cap space. May turns 31 next week. The Nashville Predators streak continued on Thursday with a seventh consecutive win, 6-1 over the Minnesota Wild. Roman Josi with a goal and 2 assists. The homestand continues Saturday night against the Colorado Avalanche, a 5 p.m. puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Happy Friday. You made it. Good to be back in Nashville. Combine still ongoing in Indianapolis. It's quarterback and wide receivers day, kids. We got a lot to talk about. Lucas is back there. Peanuts, peanut butter crackers. Did you bring snacks, or since you get relegated back to the literal shadows, are you done with snack time at this point since you have to resume your regularly scheduled responsibilities?
Quite the contrary. The snack game is improved. A bacon, egg, and cheese bagel, courtesy of Ramon Foster.
Okay. Well, it's good that you can continue the grift. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in, you got the F&M Bank chat. You can live stream the show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Fun week in Indy. It's like Vegas, though. 3 days is enough, so we're glad to be back. Offensive line workouts tomorrow, so we'll obviously be keeping a close eye on those things today and throughout the course of the weekend. As I mentioned, wide receivers and quarterbacks speak today. You'll hear from the wide receivers who you are most interested in at the top of the draft. Some other guys who will be in the later rounds, day 2, day 3 picks, who can also help your football team. You had workouts yesterday in Indianapolis. The highlights, I think, pretty much as expected. Dallas Turner put on a phenomenal show with the drills. He's edge number 1. I don't think that was really ever up for debate, although Chop Robinson, not to be confused with Darius Robinson, Lucas. Chop Robinson, one of the faster 40 times for the defensive lineman. Braden Fisk, the fastest 40 time among defensive linemen, 4.7. My guy was moving.
Are we going to do the thing that we did last year where we try to convince ourselves that Will Anderson actually might not be the best pass rusher in this draft? And then Tyree Wilson started shooting up the boards, and suddenly Tyree Wilson might be drafted before Will Anderson. And anybody that watched Will Anderson was like, no, he's the one.
Pretty good.
And he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. Let's not do that again, please, with Dallas Turner. He is the best edge rusher.
No, but it's going to happen. Like, you understand how this works, surely, by now. Lucas, the draft process it's not so long. Like, it's really not that long of a timeline, I guess, from, let's just say, Senior Bowl to the end of April. But you know how many different people start to catch up, and Dallas Turner is at the top of the draft class. It's not like anybody is going to be late to the party on Dallas Turner, but there's just so many months of talking and over-talking and continuing to talk, and then free agency happens, and it affects how we talk and all these different things, and that so much time passes that people start to just get tired of what they've been saying about the same prospects over and over again, and then all of a sudden somebody tosses something out there like Dan Orlovsky saying Jaden Daniels should be the top quarterback in the class, and everybody says, whoa!
This feels different. Wait. I like it. Yeah.
Hang on a sec.
Now, Will Anderson was drafted before Tyree Wilson, right?
Yes.
Will went 3, Tyree went 7, but still, it was the discourse, and feels like we're headed towards the 3rd straight year of that, where a couple of years ago it was, Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall over Aiden Hutchinson, when anybody that watched Aiden Hutchinson will say, why?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
It's the Jags. The Jags still. I mean, he's not a bad player, but he's
a fine player.
He's a fine player.
Aiden Hutchinson is a pretty damn good player.
Yeah, he's a considerably better player given Jacksonville's needs. Like, imagine the Jags with Hutchinson and with Josh Allen. I know his contract situation is up in the air right now, but how much different would that pass rush have felt if they had 2 legitimate number 1 players coming off the edge of people. Anyway, we're not here to really get drafts. We're here to talk about the upcoming draft. The title of the show today, for those of you watching on Zone TV, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, as I said, is why the rest of the NFL is uncertain on the Titans quarterback, Will Levis. And we're going to flesh that out some later on in the show. He did a sit-down with RG3 on his podcast, RG3 and the Ones, I believe is what it's called. And some interesting information there to go along with some discussions that we were having all week at the Combine and how the rest of the NFL. Does it not seem like there's such a drastic difference in the way that people in Nashville talk about Will Levis versus the rest of the way the NFL views Will Levis? And it's not, I don't want people to do the lazy thing of, well, they don't watch this team. No, they actually do watch Will Levis. In fact, Will Levis was the only reason beyond Derrick Henry having an occasional young Peyton Manning moment to turn on the Titans games last year. People are well versed with the top quarterbacks at the top of the draft.
But who is crowning Will Levis?
I don't know that anybody's crowning him. I think that for the most part, people are, hey, he's exciting. He's got a lot of promise. It's different than Ryan Tannehill. Again, it's like the draft discourse. Oh, this feels good. This is different. And it is different. He's a much more talented player than Ryan Tannehill was, but it's still 3-6 and 9 starts and some inaccuracy issues, some decision-making issues, some processing stuff that he has to improve upon, and the rest of the NFL shrugs and says, yeah, okay, it's whatever. But it does feel like there's substantially more excitement about Will Levis in Tennessee than there is about Will Levis anywhere else.
Of course there is, because we're talking about fans, Titans fans.
No, I know.
They should be more excited than ex-writer from The Ringer that doesn't give a damn about what the Titans do and if they win or lose.
It's not just ex-writer from The Ringer. It's the top NFL analysts in the sport. It's Brian Baldinger. It's Dan Orlovsky. It's people saying, hey, just, pump the brakes a little bit on Will Levis. That's all I'm saying. I'm not – Heifetz being on the show yesterday brought back up the conversation, but this is something that I was talking to people about in Indy all week long.
Sure. I'm saying, of course, Titans fans – they get to be excited about that. They get to be excited about the talented quarterback matched up with the head coach that has had a great resume of working with quarterbacks.
Sure.
Of course, they're going to be more excited than ex-former player or analyst that's just looking at it from a neutral perspective.
Yeah, initially. But at what point do you start to – at what point can we have realistic conversations about him is what I'm asking. At what point can we kind of, move on from the Atlanta game, even though the Atlanta game is phenomenal and it's one of the best debuts? Only 2 other players in NFL history have had that kind of debut, and one of them being Marcus Mariota. How long can we kind of, coast off, hey, did you see the way that he shelled the Falcons? Sure, absolutely I did. And I saw the rest of the season play out, and I know the football team around him was bad, and I know that he's got a lot of promising things to be excited about. I'm excited about watching Will Levis continue to grow and improve, but I still want to have a realistic conversation about him. Our buddy Cam Wolfe of the NFL Network, did you see his hit with their show, The Insiders, yesterday?
No.
So he's up there with Pelissero and Rap Sheet and Mike Garafolo, the lead reporters for the NFL Network, and Cam is talking about the Titans. And he's saying, I don't expect them to be in the quarterback market at number 7, as if that's something that everybody else needs to be told. That's the way that a lot of people are approaching the Titans quarterback situation, kind of like, all right, he's their quarterback of the present. How much of that matters into the future? That's what this whole year is about. So we'll spend some more time. You'll hear from Will Levis on RG3's podcast. You'll hear from some people who have had, I think, fair criticisms of the quarterback, and we'll continue the draft prospect discussion. The workouts that we're watching this weekend, as I mentioned, the NFL Combine schedule has started to shift this way anyway, now that they have fans attend, so the workouts are later in the week. You had the defensive linemen and linebackers go yesterday. You will have the running backs, you'll have the wide receivers, you have the quarterbacks, and you have the offensive linemen over the course of the next couple days, defensive backs as well here in just a couple of hours, as a matter of fact. So from all of those, I'm gonna go off the board of like the top guys that we feel like we've spent the most time talking about, Lucas. Dane Brugler of The Athletic, who's their lead draft analyst, and Nate Tice. I was catching up with them before Kirby and I shipped off to head back to Nashville. And the way that those two glow about Amarius Mims, he's the Georgia tackle. He's 6'7". He's 340 pounds. He moves like a tight end. That's the workout that I'm most excited to watch this weekend. As far as the combine drill goes, yeah, there's tons of information to be gleaned. Of course, We're all awaiting, more information on the medicals beyond what the combine prospects are saying about their medicals and things like that. And there's more value to some things for various positions than there are for others. But I think for him, like on the Bruce Feldman freak list, Amarius Mims is top of the charts for me. And I know that's probably not the sexiest pick with running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks and all the highlight reel players, but I think that's going to be cool. You got one in particular you're looking for?
Jalen Wright, obviously, coming out of Tennessee,
Sure.
and what he can do to help himself, already being talked about in that sort of upper tier of running backs in this draft. It's definitely a step down from last year, right, where we had the top tier of 2 running backs taken in the first round and Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. It feels like that second tier of running backs from last year is the top tier of running backs this year, right? Like Blake Corum, Jalen Wright. Last year, who was it? I mean, Tajay Spears, and you could keep going down the list. So just for obviously biased reasons, I'm interested to see what Jalen does for himself. Because with Joe, interested to see how accurate he is. But as far as the testing stuff and the showing off the deep ball and things like that, I expect him to do well. And I don't really feel like going through that discourse again.
It's a bigger conversation if he doesn't, right? Like Milton performing well at an event like the Combine is the expectation. If something goes awry beyond just accuracy, then that's something worth kind of digging into more. But obviously that'll take place in the coming days, and we'll have Monday to talk about that. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to get involved. Let's start with Chuck in Clarksville. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Buck. Hey, I'll tell you what I see in Levis. I see some good things and I see some bad things. But I see a quarterback that can throw deep, check mark. And read defenses, seems to be able to do that, check mark. Wants to learn, wants to study, check mark. So I think Brian Callahan has to be really excited about that. And when I look at what kind of quarterback he can be, I'll listen to Peyton Manning, I'll listen to Cosell, I'll listen to some of them before I will a beat writer who's just trying to get a click. So I think Levis has a lot of good things. Does he make some mistakes? Yes. Does he lock in sometimes? Yes. He's a rookie. But I think Brian Callahan will make him better, and I think the tools are there for him to be a really good quarterback. Will he be great? We'll have to see.
Wait, am I the beat writer trying to get the clicks?
I don't know.
Is that the implication?
Usually, but I don't know if that's what he was talking about.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Again, it's not about beat writers trying to get clicks. It's about football people at the Combine and their evaluation of the player that he is. Because I don't know that he checks all of the boxes, Chuck, that you just laid out, which is why we're going to have the discussion later on in the noon hour. Don't forget, Coach Dave McGinnis will be here as well at 11:20. We'll talk Combine prospects and Will Levis with him. Coming up next, though, potential NFL rule changes and some adjustments to the college football playoff format that has everybody hot and bothered. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Combine is going on today. Quarterbacks and wide receivers have already spoken. We'll tell you what the top wide receiver prospects had to say at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. While all of this is going on, of course, the Combine is as much convention as it is workout setting. So all kinds of offshoots and meetings going on, sidebars, including the competition committee. Now, you'll remember that Mike Vrabel, former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel, was on the competition committee. But since he is no longer an active head coach, he has been replaced. Sean McDermott of the Buffalo Bills and Sean McVay of the Los Angeles Rams are now the two newest members of the competition committee, and they got together this week to talk about a variety of different rules changes. So it's Rich McKay, who's the CEO of the Falcons, Cincinnati Bengals executive Katie Blackburn, GM of the Dolphins Chris Greer, Dallas Cowboys VP Stephen Jones, John Mara, the owner of the New York Giants, McDermott, McVay, and Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kickoffs are the thing that is drawing a fair amount of scrutiny. Of course, the NFL continues to try and make that a safer play. Now, hip drop tackles, of which many Titans fans have taken issue with the execution of those things. The tush-push, end zone fumbles, intentional grounding are all on the table. But I think that the most interesting thing out of this is the technological advances that are finally in the year 2024 being really reevaluated. Not necessarily change imminent for the 2024 season, but that change is coming with things like the chain gang. Lucas, what is your position on the chain gang?
It's one of those things I can't believe this is how we're still doing this.
That we are leaving it up to, and I don't want to denigrate chain gang workers, but it's not like if refs aren't full-time employees, it's not like the chain gang is a highly specialized group of tactically placed individuals, right? It's about as rudimentary a measurement in a multi-billion-dollar industry as you could possibly find. It's basically a horse-drawn carriage in the middle of an Amazon campus. It doesn't make any sense. Why is it here? What's going on here? So the chain gang is among the level of technological advances that's being evaluated. An optical tracking system has been proposed to measure the line to gain on first downs, which would replace the chain gang. A tracking system that would help officials track the ball and players, and additional high-resolution cameras along the goal line, sideline, and end lines. They already have the GPS trackers in the players' shoulder pads anyway. Why the hell have we been waiting so long to do this?
Slap it on the ball.
It's just a chip. If I can get my cat chipped to make sure that it doesn't get lost, then you could sure as hell chip a football and figure out how to better measure the line to gain. So we're not going out there and some dude, part-time lawyer, part-time NFL official holding his hands up with a this far away measurement for fourth and inches or third and inches or whatever the case may be. Enough with the chain gang.
I care more about the football, though, being tracked than I do the chain gang. Like, chain gang's just there to tell you, okay, this is the line of scrimmage, this is the line to gain. I care way more about having a more accurate reading of where the football is, right? When a running back disappears under a pile and a referee is sprinting up to that pile, waving his arms, having no idea where that football is, and then when everybody comes out of it, he just estimates. That's what I care much more about that than I do who's operating the chain gang.
I mean, other than outright war, it's the most violent game of real estate acquisition that you could possibly have, the NFL, okay? And you got somebody out there guesstimating it.
I think it was here. And coaches get fired.
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. Games get decided by literal inches. It's not just the cliche, a game of inches. No, this is actually how people keep or lose their jobs long term. Why it's taken this long, I mean, a discussion that can be had. And there is always the level of discourse where people bring up the amount of cameras, the amount of instant replay, how much clunkier it makes the game, how much more it slows down the game. they have to get all of these things. You know what I think the biggest driving force behind this is? It's not that antiquated technology and some guy out there holding a hot dog in the first down marker in one hand and the other trying to figure out where the ref is spotting the ball. I think it's because of gambling. I think, again, the answer to all of your questions always, as the great Tony Kornheiser says, is money. I think there's too much gambling involved. I think the NFL has too much at stake with its gambling partnerships involved to leave that amount of variance in how these games are decided. Even prop bets and things like that. There are millions upon millions of dollars bet every Sunday on inches. NFL's got to figure out a way to get it right. So to date, coaches' booths also do not have access to live data feeds. Does that surprise you? We have NFL Jesus, right? The GSIS. It's the live stats tracker, the play-by-play tracker. It's a more immediate live feed than if you were looking at the play-by-play sheet on ESPN.com or something like that while watching a game. I'm surprised that coaches don't have access to live data feeds, but data tracking would be entered into spreadsheets to better equip teams to monitor trends and make adjustments. You're going to have more crunching of numbers, and it's already, this has been the case for several years at this point, but you're going to have more people crunching numbers in real time to help the coaches make more accurate decisions, or at least you should have those people to help the coaches make more accurate decisions. And now each stadium could also feature 4 wired tablets per sideline to enable players and coaches to more readily review in-game footage. So over the course of the next month, competition committee is going to decide all these different things. There's going to be another gathering in Florida at the end of the month where this stuff will officially be put into place or be voted down, this, that, and the other. But of all the different rule changes that are being evaluated, I think the technological advances are the most interesting. If you're a special teams coach, how do you feel about kickoffs or the return game right now? I know Titans fans have been frustrated with, I don't want to say a lack of attention, because it's not like Mike Vrabel didn't take special teams seriously enough, although you could accuse him of not taking his place kicker seriously enough at times. They're legislating kickoffs out of the game, or they're trying to legislate kickoffs out of the game as much as humanly possible. The XFL model that has been tested out there. By the way, did you know the XFL and the USFL merged? Do you have any idea that happened?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that was news a few months ago.
We never talked about it, did we?
Nah.
It was probably during football season, but still.
It's getting harder and harder for me to try to care about what spring football league that tries to pop up and what they're doing with it.
I mean, but
it's news. There's big money involved and The Rock and all those things, but I tried with the AAF. I tried with the US. I went to the inaugural USFL game.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, in Birmingham.
Boots on the ground reporting?
The Birmingham Stallions against the New Jersey Generals. It was a good time, and then didn't watch a play for the rest of the season.
All right. Well, we don't have to revisit that, but there are various rules and methods of play being tested at those levels that is being evaluated and potentially applied to the NFL.
The kickoff thing feels like it's all but been phased out already, though, right?
Well, basically last year was the biggest blow, right, where they modified it. Teams could call for a fair catch anywhere within the 25-yard line and receive the ball at the 25.
And that's when the kicker's not knocking it out over the back of the end zone, which happens more often than not. You see the kickoff percentages, the touchback percentages go up in that case. Concussion rate did drop, which is the thing that they're trying to get a handle on the most. It did drop from 20 concussions on kickoffs to 8 last season. That's pretty significant. League officials as well as coaches and players don't like that the kickoff has become, and this is courtesy of the reporting of The Athletic, don't like that the kickoff has almost become a dead or, quote, ceremonial play. Yeah.
Which
it has. I mean, remember when the Titans signed Nick Folk?
Yeah.
And the first thing we did, looking at his Football Reference numbers, his touchback numbers, not very good.
Tried to figure out why his touchback percentage looked the way that it did.
And then we figured it out that Bill Belichick, special teams mastermind, was very strategic, right, of kicking it short of the goal line and covering the kick. That went out the window with the team's ability to call for a fair catch and then have it on the 25 regardless. So, yeah, it's the kickoff has all but been removed from the game.
So this week, 3 different special teams coach from 3 different NFL staffs, Richard Hightower of the Bears, Darren Rizzi of the Saints, and John Fassel, who's been around for a long time with the Cowboys, basically presented to the competition committee various suggestions on how to modify the kickoff. Saturday, special teams coordinators from all 32 teams will gather to discuss potential modifications and craft a proposal for the committee and league officials to consider sometime next week. So just if you're unfamiliar with the XFL kickoff, kicker lines up at the traditional spot, team's 35-yard line. The rest of the kicking team lines up further downfield, only 5 yards away from the receiving team's front line, which is done in effect to try and eliminate the high-speed collisions, the most violent of the car wrecks out there on a football field. I'm not going to knock the NFL if they're taking measures to make sure that the game is safer, because it's always been just something that I feel like the league kind of says and then goes about the blood sport anyway. But there is a part of me that does hate that the kickoff is ceremonial. I'm blanking on the name of the famous Bears kick returner. Just went into the Hall of Fame.
Devin Hester, sorry. Devin Hester. Can a Devin Hester exist in today's NFL with the way that the kickoff rules have changed? Those are some of the most electrifying plays on a football field. Now, this is the cost-benefit analysis. Do you value player health more than you value the occasional kickoff return for a touchdown? The answer should undoubtedly be yes. But there is that part of you that still values the entertainment. It's why the NFL is as popular as it is, and I think this does have an impact because it is ceremonial. It just takes up time. Why even bother? Just put it at the 25 and let's go. Hip drop tackles. The committee seems likely to approve a measure for owners to vote on to ban the hip drop tackle, which has become more and more prevalent, has led to a spike in lower body injuries. And listen, they're not going to be able to legislate out all of the injuries. Concussions are at the forefront because brain damage is horrifying, and what happens to players with continued exposure and CTE, and certainly with things like the passing of Frank Wycheck recently. I know Titans fans take that stuff to heart. But the hip drop tackle is also something that affected your football team last year, in particular Ryan Tannehill. They are trying to eliminate it, and it's a controversial matter, especially among the players, because players are just tossing their hands up and be like, all right, how do I play defense now? You know? How the coaches are trying to figure out the best possible techniques to equip the players to be able to do their jobs. Is defensive back the hardest position to play in football? Corner. Not as much safety, but is corner the hardest position to play in football right now because of the rules? If for no other reason because of the rules. I would maintain that it is. If you already have the body weight rule and roughing the passer and how controversial that's become, I'm not saying that hip drop tackle shouldn't be reevaluated and shouldn't be voted out, because it does directly contribute to the spike in lower body injuries, but you're tackling people. You're going to get hurt one way or the other. I just feel like it's almost an impossible position for the NFL, right? They try to make the games safer for the quarterbacks. Lucas, how many quarterbacks started a football game last year because, again, the league was ravaged by quarterback injury? What was the number? Like in the 60s?
It was north of 60. And the year prior it had been 66. They change all the rules. They make them in favor of the offense. They do it to keep the quarterback safer because they want the star power to last for longer. And because football is wildly dangerous, the players still get hurt. And you're out there in week 15 with Andy Dalton and Case Keenum and Will Levis because Ryan Tannehill has got hurt. All basically a whole shift change in quarterbacks and teams starting multiple quarterbacks throughout the course of the year because you're going to get hurt tackling somebody or getting tackled. I don't know what the happy medium is. I wish that I had better advice for the league on it. People who are much smarter than I are tasked with making these decisions and trying to figure out exactly where to land. But defensively, you got to be looking around as a player and being like, I don't know what else you want me to do. And even as a coach, tell me exactly the way that I'm supposed to coach these guys. That was always Vrabel's thing. Just let me know how to call this thing consistently, or at least how to coach this thing consistently to best put the players in position to succeed. I don't know that the rules allow for defensive players to be put in the best position to succeed. I think they're just inherently going to fail, 4 times out of 10 with the way the percentages are skewed. And it's just a percentage that I tossed out there. I don't know if it's actually 40%, but still, you get my meaning. Anything in particular jump off the page to you about what the NFL is trying to mess around with here? Tush push? There's not really been a documented increase in injuries because of the tush push. But that's something that they're studying very closely. It sounds like it's going to stick around based on the conversations coming out of the initial competition committee.
I think it should.
You think it should?
Yeah. It's 11 people lining up behind a ball. Stop it, right? And then it was unstoppable until it wasn't, right, with the Eagles at the end of the season last year.
Well, again, the concern is, you, like Jason Kelsey. You see Jason Kelsey go head first and dive in ways that are going to concern you about the head, the neck, and various injuries. So you're right. It's a football play. Stop it. But also, what is the heightened degree of risk because of the tush push? Quantifiably, there hasn't been an effect yet.
Although with all those NFL rule changes, I am more intrigued by what Ross Dellinger has reported about college football expected to add 3 new things in the near future that would dramatically change the way college football games are played, and that is helmet communication, having tablets on the sideline and at halftime, and a 2-minute warning in college football.
Any of those things? I mean, they're just trying to NFL it.
It makes sense that players playing in college football are trying to get to the NFL, so it makes sense that the game they are playing is very similar to the game that they want to be playing in the NFL. Like, even for the most diehard of college football traditionalists, are you going to get worked up about a 2-minute warning?
No, but the thing that they're getting worked up about is the new the proposed playoff format, where this field has already been expanded to 12. Now we're talking about 14, and the Big Ten and the SEC want first-round buys.
Yeah.
We're outright instituting the NFL playoff system.
Not really, because the NFL playoff system, does the NFL playoff system guarantee anyone a first-round bye?
No.
No. The SEC and Big Ten are trying to say that just by being a part of the SEC and Big Ten and winning it, you get a first-round bye.
But did you see what Pate is saying about why the messaging on that is coming from the Big Ten and the SEC? They're talking about expanding.
Yeah, Pate thinks that they want to expand.
Again.
As an SEC person and a Tennessee alum, I hate this. I hate trying to fix something that isn't even broken yet. We haven't even tried the 12-team playoff system, and we're already talking about 14. It's gluttony. That's what it is. It's straight up. Like, if we're going to expand from 12, then let's bump it up to 16. But this 3-3-2-2-1, where the SEC and Big Ten want 3 automatic qualifiers each, and then the ACC and Big 12 get 2, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of this.
Now, your opinion on this matters more than mine, because I saw this, I shrugged my shoulders and said, yeah, this is the thing that's going to make them the most money. This is the thing that they were always going to do. And I'm jaded with college football that way because I cover the NFL, and there's not a greedier league in professional sports. By the way, successfully. They are trafficking successfully in all of that greed. It's been the most successful thing that they've got going is the ability to make money off the sport. The second most popular sport in America is college football. That it honestly took this long for this amount of sea change, and I know that there's a bunch of different mitigating factors that led the process to be so expedited in the course of the last 3 years, essentially.
Now, I will say, the way you shrugged it off, said, yeah, they want to be the NFL. What's new? I think that's a very lazy way to look at it because the SEC and Big Ten are not looking at this saying, no, we need to make college football like the NFL, like they're doing this for the good of college football to make it like the most popular league in the country. No, they're doing it for the betterment of the SEC and the Big Ten. This is not about making this look like the NFL. This is about what helps the SEC and the Big Ten the most, right? How can we expand this in a way that is always going to include the SEC and the Big Ten, that we are guaranteed the first round bye. And there are elements of it that would be entertaining, right? Like the SEC team scrapping for that third automatic qualifier would be fun. It would be fun to watch. But I think it's not about like, okay, how can we be like the NFL? How can we be like the NFL? It's about SEC and Big Ten saying, how can we help us? How can we help us? The NFL is not something that's in their mind.
Well, I disagree only because of this, Lucas, and it can still be the lowest common denominator argument, but I'm just looking at, like, what is the most profitable thing that the NFL does?
Okay, yeah. If
the profit margins here and the way that they're talking about expanding the postseason, including more brands, including more schools, raising the level of intrigue, and also sparking discussion, because if you say, hypothetically, you grant this, and I know we got to go, so I don't want to get too much into it here, and we can talk about it with more informed people than Lucas and I next week with some people who are doing boots on the ground reporting. But my position on it looking like an NFL model is not based on the SEC and the Big Ten saying, no, the NFL model works. This is why. The NFL, it's not just because the NFL model works. It's because the NFL model makes the most money.
Right.
That's why we're here.
Well, then we can say that about anybody, right? It's not they want to be the NFL. It's they want to make money. Every league on the planet that's what they want.
Well,
so if that's what the thing they have most in common with the NFL is that they want to make money, then we can go ahead and lump everybody into that.
Where the NCAA has floated the idea of expanding the NCAA tournament and just ruining it with the 68-team format working the way it does already. Anyway, SEC stat of the day. We'll talk some college hoops. Huge game for Tennessee tomorrow against Alabama. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
All right, before we do SEC observations, Lucas, we got a little bit of breaking NFL news. You want to give me a laser light show?
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
Adam Schefter of ESPN. The Eagles are releasing safety Kevin Byard per source. Eagles acquired Byard from the Titans last October in exchange for a 5th-round pick and a 6th-round pick in the upcoming 2024 NFL Draft, along with safety Terrell Edmonds. I add, parenthetically, Kevin Byard back out on the streets. Now, he's back here in Nashville. This is where he lives in the offseason, and he has continued to train here recently, so, he's around the area. The immediate question that people are going to ask is, should the Titans bring him back for the right price? We can talk about that at the top of the 11 o'clock hour because we got some SEC stat of the day stuff to do first. Go ahead.
Not terribly shocking news, right?
No,
KB.
not his contract was always going to make a problem.
SEC stat of the day is about Dalton Connect. Huge game at the top of the SEC tomorrow. Tennessee going down to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. A 7 p.m. tip-off that you can hear right here, courtesy of the Vol Network. Dalton Connect. Second half numbers on the road in the SEC this season. Buck, how many points per game is Connect averaging on the road in the second half in conference play?
On the road in the second half in conference play, 15?
16. 16 points per game, 58% from the floor, 56% from three, 68% from the free throw line. He has scored in double figures in 6 of 7 road games. He has scored 20 points or more 3 times on the road in conference play this season. That needs to continue as Tennessee needs to outscore Alabama on Saturday, which has the rare honor of having the best offense in the SEC and the worst defense in the SEC. Statistically, Bama puts up over 91 points per game. They allow over 79 points per game. In fact, the 2 best offenses in the SEC, Alabama and Kentucky, are also the 2 worst defenses in the SEC statistically. Now, their style of play impacts that, right? Teams have to go up and down the floor. Teams have to try and match Alabama's scoring, so they're going to give up more points. But did you watch Alabama-Kentucky last Saturday?
Yes. Oh, my God. Kentucky just shelling them.
Alabama. And Kentucky's playing well right now. Reed Shepherd is taking over games right now.
Cal heard that his job was in danger. It's like, all right, boys, let's kick it up a notch. They do the thing. Kentucky always does this, and it drives me insane.
But Alabama was so dreadful in that game defensively.
Terrible.
I mean, dreadful.
What was it, 117 points for Kentucky?
Yeah, I think so. I don't have it in front of me.
They were scoring damn near a 1.5 per possession at certain points of the game. It was disgusting defense.
Bama gave up 88 against Ole Miss at home earlier this week. They put up 103 to win that game. So Tennessee and Bama tied on record at the top of the SEC standings. Tennessee obviously has the head-to-head from early on in the SEC slate where the Vols blitzed Alabama at home, kind of ran away with that game. Got to do it again in Tuscaloosa. Dalton Connect coming off that 39-point performance. By the way, my favorite stat from that game, Connect only missing 2 free throws. If there's any blemish on what he's done, it's that his free throw percentage has hovered below 70% this season. He was fantastic from the line against Auburn earlier this week. Tennessee's going to have to outscore Alabama. This is a huge game. Tennessee has to go to South Carolina and then finish the regular season at home against Kentucky. So if you beat Alabama, you take that win, you hand them a loss, and you have the head-to-head tiebreaker, you're in a great spot to where even if you drop one of those last 2 against South Carolina and Kentucky, you'll feel great about your chances to finish with the 1 seed for the SEC tournament and to win the regular season championship. It would be the second one in the Rick Barnes era at Tennessee. Now, don't totally dismiss Kentucky in this race because they have a favorable schedule before they have to meet Tennessee when they host Arkansas and they host Vanderbilt. Those should be 2 easy wins for Kentucky here in the upcoming week. Arkansas tomorrow, Vandy next Wednesday. Then they'll travel to Knoxville. So let's say, hypothetically, Tennessee were to lose to Alabama tomorrow, they would drop to were to beat Alabama tomorrow, they'd be 13-3 in conference play, and were to beat South Carolina on that game. I can't remember if that game's on Tuesday or Wednesday. They'd be 14-3 in conference play. Then Tennessee would be all but clinched with the regular season title. But if they were to drop that South Carolina game, Tennessee would have 4 losses in conference play, and then you'd have Kentucky, assuming the Wildcats win against Arkansas and Vandy, coming up with 5 losses in conference play, only a game back, determined to beat you in the head-to-head. And then if that were to happen, we'd be talking about other tiebreakers. So don't count out Kentucky in the SEC regular season title race, but Tennessee has a massive opportunity on Saturday in front of what will be an electric crowd at Coleman Coliseum.
Yeah, Tennessee is still if you look at most sports books, they're still the betting favorite to win the conference title. They're plus 105. Just looking at FanDuel, Alabama second, Auburn third. Kentucky with the longest odds of any real contender. Now this is at the start of the week, basically. This is Tuesday that they put out the latest odds on this. But I look at Alabama. Do you know Alabama has scored 100? How many times do you think Alabama has scored 100 points in a game this year? Because they started off with 3 straight 100-point performances.
I'm going to say 9.
9 exactly.
Really?
They have scored 100 points or more in 9 games. It's the best since the Kentucky team, I think it was 1995, 1996, that had done that, had reached those kind of scoring heights. So to your point, you're going to have to outscore Alabama. It's no small feat, and Tennessee will be probably, I would imagine, a slight favorite on the road. Or, excuse me, a slight underdog on the road.
I'm trying to find the spread for this game. I mean, you're talking about 2 of the top scorers in college basketball going head-to-head with Dalton Connect and Mark Sears. And why can't I find this game for tomorrow? All these games I'm looking at.
Who texted you?
What? No one.
I heard it vibrate.
There was no vibration.
It's not true.
I will hand you my phone in the break. There was no vibration. My phone is on silent. I don't have one. Who texted
you? Russell Bearden, one of our sales staff.
Hey, Russell.
Hey, bud. It doesn't seem like it's going to be out for. It might not be out there yet, Lucas. College basketball's weird that way.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be out there.
Later today, probably.
Yeah, I would expect.
But, yeah, 2 of the best scorers, 2 candidates for SEC Player of the Year, and Mark Sears and Dalton Connect. Theoretically, Mark Sears, I don't think, has put up the resume Connect has this season in terms of lifting his team and taking over games. But we'll see. It'll be a fun game, without a doubt. Fun game, electric atmosphere. Would be surprised if Tennessee went down there and just took it to them again the way they did at home earlier this season.
2 longtime Titans starters are cap casualties out on the open market. We'll talk about Kevin Byard and Jonnu Smith, should the Titans consider them for the right price. 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 11:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Breaking news in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles are releasing former Titan and former All-Pro safety Kevin Byard. It'll clear over $13 million in salary cap space. Byard, of course, started 10 games during his time in Philly after he was traded from Tennessee. Today at the NFL Combine in Indy, defensive backs and tight ends are working out at Lucas Oil Stadium. It was quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers meeting with the media this morning. And meanwhile, the Nashville Predators streak continued on Thursday, a 7th straight win, 6-1 over the Minnesota Wild. Roman Josi, a goal and 2 assists. The homestand will continue Saturday night against the Colorado Avalanche. That is a 5 p.m. puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour on this Friday. Thanks for hanging out with Lucas Panzica and myself. Coach Dave McGinnis will join the fun. He was Mac at the Titans groundbreaking ceremony yesterday, or just Mike Keith? I did not see pictures of Coach Mac, but Mac doesn't have an Instagram the way that Mike is now all over the place posting, which is fun. I love following Mike Keith on Instagram. It's great fun.
I think a lot of them were still on their way down from Indy during the ceremony, but Mike was definitely there. I did not see any other members of the Titans radio crew.
Okay, either way, Titans broke ground on the new stadium yesterday. That was an exciting event. We'll get Lucas's boots on the ground reporting. You did, in fact, go, yes?
I did. They would not let me be the one to break the ground. I asked several people.
Did you?
And answers ranged from no to absolutely not to security. Please remove this man. Otherwise, it was a fun event.
So if I follow up and if I check with the necessary parties about your various requests, did you ask a question? Did you determine who Amy Adams Strunk was voting for in the upcoming presidential election like we talked about?
I had to leave early. Had a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Didn't even see them actually use the shovels.
No, you did not.
Yeah. I had to leave. I had to leave when I had a production meeting.
I was looking on your timeline for actual groundbreaking stuff yesterday. I'm like, that little mother bleeper didn't go.
I had to leave. I left while Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood were talking.
Oh, that was just a terrible joke by Garth.
I didn't see that. I wasn't there. What did he say?
Lucas, the whole point was for you to go so that we could talk about this intelligently on the show since I had to come back yesterday.
Do we talk about anything intelligently on the show?
We try, I think. I don't know. Apparently not that hard. Garth Brooks was saying something to the effect of, I'm so pleased to be here for a groundbreaking ceremony for one of the world's state-of-the-art concert venues that occasionally professional football will be played at. All right, Garth. But they had Bill Lee up there, Governor Bill Lee. They had Amy, they had Burke, they had Rand, they had Callahan.
Freddie O'Connell spoke.
I saw that Eddie George and Brett Kern participated in the festivities.
Oh, I didn't see Brett.
I did see Brett. So you just, you tend to hide in shame from Brett Kern since he went to punt. What did he punt? Did he punt to you?
Oh yeah, he punted to me, and I tried to fair catch it. Well, with a bottle of Gatorade in one hand, I will say.
Don't make the excuses for yourself.
And yeah, I muffed it horrendously.
We should do that again sometime. That was fun for me. I should go out there and try to field a punt. I'd probably get hit in the face.
I would like to redeem myself. But no, I would have said hey to Brett if I had seen him. I did see Eddie George out there. It was definitely a who's who of Titans legends and execs floating around. But it was weird being out there and just thinking, this is the last time I will ever stand in the Nissan Stadium parking lot.
So we'll get to that a little later. But Kevin Byard just got cut by the Eagles. The Titans fans want him back because the reason that Byard got cut, performance in part, for sure. The decline of Kevin Byard started here in Tennessee. We talked about the idea of them having moved money around already because they were clearly signaling that they were getting ready to move on from Kevin Byard in some form or fashion. They did a deal. They got the 5th and 6th round pick in 2024 out of it. Is Kevin Byard somebody the Titans fans want back for the right price? Because I didn't get a ton of, hey, re-sign Jonnu Smith. even though Jonnu's coming off arguably, I think a career best year if to look at the numbers.
In Atlanta?
Which is not something that we would have thought about. But Jonnu Smith had a better year than I think a lot of people anticipated since he landed back with Art. Jonnu, KB.
It was a career year.
Yeah.
Career high in yards, not in touchdown. Man, he had 8 touchdowns in that 2020 season.
I mean, they were
Titans.
ripping touchdowns off left and right in 2020.
I mean, just a red zone threat too, right? Because he wasn't. I mean, he didn't break 500 yards receiving that season, but 8 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing as well. He had 3 touchdowns, but a career high in yards with 582, and also in catches with 50.
And Jameson says of the stadium announcement, I watched the whole stream. I'll never get those hours back. I just can't imagine why. Because I had fans tweeting me asking if it was a public event. I was like, do you really want to go to that?
It was public. I mean, anybody could walk up. It was very accessible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's not something that they made clear in the press releases.
Yeah,
they said that they were going to live stream it everywhere.
You could just pull in and you tell the security guy out there, I'm here for the groundbreaking, and anybody could park and walk up.
Okay, so it's not that there was a public event. It's that the security measures probably weren't the best, it sounds like.
I think it was designed to be a public event.
Okay.
That's not how they publicized it, but.
So, Jonnu, KB, do you want guys like that back? Because you have the cap space. I'm good on Kevin Byard playing for the Tennessee Titans at this point in his career. I think that if you watch the way that the Eagles secondary looked old and slow and that KB was a part of the problem.
He'll be 31 this season.
And that's not old, but it does feel like defensive backs and wide receivers, it's just an athleticism thing, right? It falls off a cliff. Now, you don't have to be as athletic at safety as you do at corner, for example. So it's not the most important thing in the world. It's why guys like Logan Ryan move from corner to safety in the later stages of their career. It's just it's more feasible at that point. But he's definitely not the same player. And the contract situation in Philadelphia, I think, always lent itself to this being the conclusion for them. Is there some sentimental attachment? Of course there is. Of course there is. Kevin Byard's one of the best players to ever play for this franchise. Blaine, I have heard say that Kevin Byard is the best safety to play for this franchise. I'm not going to say it, but if Blaine Bishop does, that's 100%. That's one of the biggest ringing endorsements that you could have from somebody who should also be absolutely in that conversation. But Byard was always on the top of any of these cap casualty lists that you looked around. The secondary in Philadelphia got worse after they traded for him. Byard last year allowed a completion rate of 72.7%. 10 regular season games with the Eagles. 6 games with the Titans, 72.7%. This is courtesy of alltitans.com. In 10 regular season games with Philadelphia, the rate rose from 72.7 to 75.6. Passer rating allowed increased from 99.8 to 103.3. Those are the worst numbers of Kevin Byard's career in those respective categories. I'm sure the Twitch names make me laugh sometimes. Scrummy37 on Twitch says, I'm okay with KB coming back. Good leadership for new guys coming in. Emmett Jones says, bring back Byard for the low. What is the safety class like next year? Olivia wants to know, could you bring back Byard on a 1-year deal and then draft a safety next year to replace him? I don't think if they moved him once, they're going to want to bring it back, guys. Listen, no, I don't know how Denard Wilson feels about Kevin Byard, and I'm not going to say that there's a 100% chance that Kevin Byard is not going to be a Tennessee Titan next year. I'm not going to say there's a 100% chance of anything. But I would be really surprised if there was any kind of real effort to go out there and pursue KB in free agency. They do have a needed safety they have to fill. I don't think Elijah Molden is the kind of player that you want running alongside Amani Hooker for an entire season.
Well, we talked about safety being one of the spots that you may have to see some compromise, sure, right, for lack of a better word, with the inability to completely rebuild every corner of a roster in one offseason, no matter how many resources you have. be worse ways to compromise than bringing back Kevin Byard on a low-end deal for 2024. I know he did struggle last year.
It was bad.
But the Eagles' defense also struggled as a whole. And their pass rush, which
Fell off
was
a cliff.
tops in the NFL 2 years ago, exactly, fell off a cliff. That affected the entire defense top to bottom. They had inconsistencies on who was calling the plays. It was a revolving door.
Their defensive
Sean
coordinator
Desai.
in season and then
It was a
left
mess.
it over to Matt Patricia. It was
Total
There
mess.
are more things than just Kevin Byard's decline here, but Kevin Byard was already a declining player in Tennessee last year that was noticeable, Lucas. And I just think that if you have the opportunity to restart this, and I'm not for going out now that L'Jarius Sneed, and I know the Chiefs have given L'Jarius Sneed the opportunity to seek a trade now that they franchise tagged him. But the more that I think about this, the more that I would rather see the resources spent on wide receivers, centers, and the draft picks spent on the defense, or supplemented by the defense. If you can get a stopgap replacement level starter, and maybe that's KB at 31, I don't know, but I don't think that's something that you have to revisit.
What do you think his market value would be?
What was he making? Why don't we talk about that coming up next before Coach Mack joins the discussion? We'll talk Combine, of course, with him because I want to take a look at some of the salary figures going around for safety right now and speak out of turn. So we'll do that coming up next. Coach Mack as well. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Coach Dave McGinnis will be here in just a little bit. Combine not concluded, still going on today. Running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers all speaking. We'll get into what some of the wide receivers had to say here in just a little bit. I mentioned that I was going to take a look at some active safety contracts to try and determine what Kevin Byard's market value might be. He was just released from the Philadelphia Eagles. I had posed the question, are Titans fans interested in having him return at a cost-effective deal? Do you know who the highest paid safety in the NFL right now is? By average annual value.
Tell me.
It is Derwin James, Minka Fitzpatrick, Jamal Adams up there, which is crazy. Jamal Adams,
Wow.
that dude needs to be cut yesterday. $17.6 million a year for Jamal Adams is disgusting. There's really not a ton of safeties, like great safeties at the top of the market. For example, Amani Hooker makes $10 million a year. Kevin Byard is coming off a deal where he was making $12.5. I can't imagine that anybody's going to pay KB more than $5. I'll just ballpark 5 and 7 just to account for state income taxes in different places.
Wouldn't it be funny for us to go to training camp and be doing our stuff, broadcasting live, and KB's there like nothing changed?
Hey, guys.
He was at training camp last year.
Sits back down with us.
A cup of coffee in Philly, comes right back. You don't see that often, though, right? Like a foundational player like Kevin Byard traded mid-season, cut from the team he was traded to, and then end up right back on the team that dealt him.
I just can't imagine a situation. If they were already trying to get rid of him actively, I don't know that they would want to revisit that. But we'll talk to Dave McGinnis about the viability of Byard and just basically the challenge of trying to fix all the various problems that they have during the offseason before we dive into some combine prospect stuff. Coach Dave McGinnis's visits with us, presented as always by Two Rivers Ford. They made my combine coverage possible. We're always grateful for Two Rivers Ford. They gave me a 2024 Explorer to take to Indy. Great vehicle. I drive a 2022 Ford Explorer, as a matter of fact, so it was easy for me to sit down and get rolling. It's always a great experience when you go visit Two Rivers Ford at the dealership, online, in person, no matter how you like to shop. They will put you in position to succeed. My combine coverage was presented by Two Rivers Ford, as I said. Mac's visits are presented by Two Rivers Ford. He's still in Indy delivering great combine coverage on behalf of the Titans radio crew. Hey, Mac.
Yeah, I'm still here. I just got through with a meeting, getting ready to go to another one. I meet with position coaches here and various other guys, depending on now which position is going to start working out. I just saw Adolfo Birch. I visited with him. He was at the groundbreaking and then drove back up here for some meetings that he had. So the Titans radio left yesterday afternoon after we got through doing a lot of things over there in the media center where you were, and then Mike Keefe left a little bit earlier because he had to be the master of ceremonies for the groundbreaking. So everybody's in their spot right now.
No doubt. So with the combine, Mac, before we get into prospects and things like that, and some of the workouts that are going down, Kevin Byard just got released by the Philadelphia Eagles, and we were talking about we saw Jonnu get cut by the Falcons, guys who have been in this place before, and the Titans having salary cap space to work with. We saw KB kind of take a dip from what we're accustomed to seeing.
Right.
And I struggle to envision a scenario in which a team that moved a player for draft picks would consider bringing the player back. Not that they would outright rule it out, because it's not like Kevin Byard's completely done playing football at 31. But it's just kind of a weird situation, and I know there's going to be a contingent of Titans fans that want to see him back in a two-tone blue uniform.
Well, there's no reason that they wouldn't. I'm talking about the fans wouldn't want to see him back. Kevin Byard wasn't moved because they didn't like Kevin Byard the person. He was moved because of the wire that every player runs up against in this league, age and money. I mean, that's the wire that everybody in this league as a player, as they approach it, they try to get under, because it's the age thing's inevitable, and depending on individuals, athletic skills erode with age, but you can't manufacture experience. Kevin Byard, is one of the all-time great Titans as a person and as a player, in my opinion. So there would be a lot, but there's a reason, that the money is the reason that he was probably released up there. And then, as you say, I don't have all the information as far as the analytics on how he played when he went up there, But to me, it's not a given that you wouldn't, but it's sure not a given that you would either.
Yeah, it's a career worst for him in terms of passer rating allowed, passing completion percentage allowed, and things like that in Philadelphia. I just look at it, Mac, because they can't, for the Titans, they can't address every need that they have right now. It's just not going to be feasible to be done in one offseason. This is a roster with considerable needs, and they're going to have to make some compromises in different places. I don't know necessarily what those compromises are going to look like, and that's the process that they're obviously working through now. But the secondary is a pretty significant place for them to have to address some of these needs, both at safety and corner. And I guess for Titans fans, they're looking at it and saying, all right, what makes the most sense, and where can the compromises be made to get the best version of next year's team?
Yeah, and again, that's up to this brand new staff, and again, that falls on Denard Wilson and Rand Carthon's purview, because that's why. And again, let me just touch on one more thing with Bart at Philly. Philly was kind of a loose ship up there this year anyway. Defensively. I mean, they had coordinator changes. Really, Denard Wilson. The Titans are fortunate he's here, because the Eagles made a pretty big mistake when they didn't promote Denard Wilson when they had him at the Eagles. When Jonathan Gannon left. I mean, that was a big mistake, because I talked to Denard last year when all that was going down. That's why he went to Baltimore. And then it turned out, and as I told him there, this might end up being one of the best things that ever happened to you. And it was. So that will be under his purview and Rand's purview as far as how they're going to start supplementing this secondary. But I know exactly the type of players that Denard is looking for and what he expects out of those positions.
Coach Dave McGinnis is here with us. Well, he's in Indianapolis, but he's on the radio show with us. His visit's presented by Two Rivers Ford out there in Mount Juliet. With the combine, the workouts beginning in earnest yesterday, they'll continue through the weekend. As you and Rhett and the rest of the Titans radio crew went about your combine preparations, I guess, Mac, we haven't really talked to you at large about how you view this draft class, the strengths and the weaknesses of it. So let's just start with the 1,000-foot view.
Well, the 1,000-foot view is there's offensive linemen in this draft. I think, the belly of this draft has been affected a little bit by NIL, because some of these junior eligibles have gone back for NIL money, and also, this is the last year of the fifth year of the older guys for COVID. So the belly of the draft's been affected, but the three positions that are there right now, numbers-wise, when you start looking at pods, Rhett and I will start potting all the players that we've looked at now, over 200 players. We'll start potting them next week after I get through up here, and then go back and watch some more tape. But anyway, offensive linemen, and not just tackles, offensive linemen, there's numbers there. There's numbers at the cornerback position. There's numbers at corners. I feel like that there's pretty good value at corners, throughout the belly of this draft. And then the wide receiver group. There are numbers through the wide receiver. Each position group, Buck, as you know, you were up here, talking. Each has some individual standouts, but numbers-wise, those are the three positions that stand out in the 2024 draft.
And so with that, those are obviously foundational pieces to any football team, but the Titans' needs, and they are many, they do time up well with how they'll be able to address them with the 7 picks that they currently hold in the draft. Not looking. We know information about whether they'd be willing to move from 7 or trade back, or how they'll maneuver on the other days of the draft. But this does set up well for Rand Carthon and his staff, and Brian Callahan with his new staff, to be able to find the best ways to address it, both organically through the draft process and with a variety of different free agents that will meet those needs as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, and that's where we are now. And again, you were up here, Buck. I mean, you've been up here before, so you know that the beehive that this is for the National Football League
Sure.
up here. There are so many opinions thrown out about a lot of things, but most of that rhetoric now, what you have to be able to do with experience, which you have, which I have, is parse through it, because quite a bit of it, and some of it on purpose, and some of it not. It's just some of it's BS. And what you got to understand is, if it is BS, you got to learn to smell it and not eat it. You got to be able to figure it out as to what's real and what's not. We're now in that phase right now where most people are looking at these players that they've seen, especially the scouts have seen all year. Now they're finding holes to poke in everybody. And then all of a sudden, everything starts to spin around. If somebody has a bad meeting, well, then all of a sudden they're a bad person, or somebody has a bad interview, and if that gets leaked out, and then so there's a lot of rhetoric to parse through up here, but the guts of it, when they start doing this empirical testing, at least you've got something to compare against when you get back and start podding your people up.
Were you on the field last night for the defensive line and linebacker drills, Mac?
No, I'm always I've got a place where I sit in the stand. I don't like the field. I can't see them. And I get up in the stands, and I usually sit with a position coach group, some people that so we can talk about them as I'm looking at them. I mean, we'll just talk through them. I always have sat in the stands all the this is 38 years that I've been doing this. I always would come, even when our suites were available, I'd come down from the suites to watch the workouts because I just want to get down there at a little better vantage point to be able to see them. I don't want to be. I was on the field for 6 years because I ran the linebacker drills. I threw the line before they brought extra quarterbacks in. For 6 years, I threw the linebacker drills. That's why I don't have a right shoulder anymore. I would throw every pass to the linebackers for 6 seasons. And so, no, now I'm in the stands. I've got my spot. People know where I'm sitting, and I really enjoy it. But I do not want to be on the field because you can't see it. It's the worst place to be to see it.
Well, I'll get your takeaways from those position groups here in just a second, but you bring up, just the option to be able to watch it in a suite for a coaching staff, or the different ways that the drills are set up at Lucas Oil, and the way that the combine has been run in Indianapolis for so many years at this point. Next year is the only year that it's still guaranteed to be at Indy, and I know that they're considering places like the Star and Frisco and stuff like that for the future combine, but Mac, it's just so hard to get everything as accomplished as well as Indianapolis is set up for this specific event. I imagine that the feedback that you get from coaches and executives that you spend so much time with, throughout the course of the year, and of course this week of the year in particular, that the momentum for Indy still has to be there to keep this thing.
Well, I mean, they got a contract for next year too. I mean, this has been ideal. And this place has seen a lot of change. I mean, you've had a total change of venue because you got a new stadium, but even, and I was asked this. I did about 8 or 9. You know how many tables were there? I think I went to 8 or 9 different tables to do interviews. The first 3 days that I was down here, they're in the interview rooms, and in the media center. And, they would ask me, because they know I've been here for every one of them, what's the difference now? So what's a huge difference? But now the technology and everything that's available to you, I mean, you talk about sitting in those suites. I mean, it's right there. All the information is right there to you. I mean, we used to have to sit in the stands and time them and write it down and then wait till the official time came out. All of that stuff is so immediate now. I mean, that's instantaneous access to all of that type of information. And then, I mean, the flow of it has changed for the players quite a bit and a lot better. I mean, it used to be these players were car washed and rushed through here too quickly, but they have a setup here that it runs very, very smoothly, and everybody in the league is very comfortable with it because, they know how to manipulate it. You've been up here long enough. I mean, you've got a certain pattern and a certain, places that you know how to go and how to manipulate and go, and the skywalks when the weather's bad, make it really, really accessible and easy. So, it's going to be here again next year. If it does move, well then, they'll still have it. The only other place I'd ever like to see it move is they get that new stadium done in Nashville. I'd love to see it in Nashville. I agree.
Nashville does host events well. It's curious to see how the league is going to manage, wanting to involve fans more versus what, the productivity level of the football people who are there getting it done. So you sat with position group coaches last night during the defensive line and linebacker drills. What was the discourse as you were watching these guys test?
Well, just, talking through, watching guys. I mean, I tell you what the consensus was. And again, I don't speak out of school, but this inside linebacker group, I think, tested better than I thought. I mean, I was pretty impressed with the way the testing came off with some of these guys, and I was very interested to watch them. Of course, the linebackers is how I cut my teeth a long time ago in this league, and
sure.
So I'm very interested in the drills and how they move, and the speed and some of the lateral movement and the the vertical jumps, the broad jumps, all that stuff I'm interested in because I know how that equates to what they have to do, especially in a short area. Linebackers, play, tackle to tackle, but, and you got to be able to run, but you got to be able to change directions in a short area very, very quickly. And some of these guys, I was looking forward to. Peyton Wilson ran a 4.43. I mean, that's fast. He ran a 4.43 at 6'4", 233, and had a 34-inch and a half-inch vertical jump and a 9.11 broad jump at NC State. And, watching him play in the Senior Bowl, now he's had some injuries, so, it's going to be really critical on the medicals with that guy. But he showed out. The kid that I was wanting to see was this Kalen DeLoach kid from Florida State that's a smaller linebacker, and he measured 5'11 and a half, 210, but he ran 4.47, and so that's the way he looks on film. He can cover some ground. That Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M that everybody was talking about, we wanted to see exactly because he's a bigger, longer guy at 6'2", 230. Everybody up there was interested in really how fast he was. He ran a 4.51, and that's legit with a 34.5 vert and a 9.10 broad. I mean, that's it. And then the Trevin Wallace kid from Kentucky, I watched him, during the season when I was doing coach to coach with Doug Matthews of the Southeastern Conference. Again, another smaller linebacker, 6'1", 237, but ran a 4.51, but vertical jump 37.5, a broad jump 10.7. So he's got some lower body explosion, and so that I was watching all of them, but the down the line guys, I was interested in the guy that I'd parsed out from Temple, a guy named Jordan McGee, that's 6'1", 228, that I think is a real playmaker, and he vertical jumped 35.5, and then all of a sudden, there's the athleticism that you kind of see on tape, 10.4 broad, and then he ran a 4.55. So those are the types of conversations you have up there. It's easy. Everybody knows who the best ones are. Separating the middle guys are what it's important to talk about.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio with us on 104.5 The Zone. His visits, as always, presented by Two Rivers Ford.
Coach, running back drills happening this weekend. Obviously, Jalen Wright of Tennessee is there. His 40 time will certainly be interesting in a way that he can flash his home run speed. But what's something that's a big question mark about Jalen, Coach, that you think he could help himself with, specifically with the running back drills this weekend?
Well, really, to me, Jalen Wright stock is up anyway. Coming into this thing, the biggest thing is with that offense. When you're looking at backs in that offense, as far as how much space and block yardage is their yardage. Do you understand what I'm saying when I say that? How many light boxes are they running against? Now, he's got home run speed. We know that, and plus, if you watch Tennessee enough, which I watched every game this year, he can make people miss in a short space, and we know he can catch the football. So to me, the drills up here, I think are something that he should be able to ace all of these drills up here. The only thing you look at when you start looking at those offenses for the running backs, especially when it's a spread offense and defenses are countering it with lighter boxes. You're trying to look and see how much of it is what they call clean air runs, and then how much of it is contested runs. That's the thing that he will have to work through as far as when he goes in with those profile tapes that people will show him in the interview room. But physically, I think Jalen Wright will do very well here.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. He's been in Indy all week. The official Titans podcast, by the way, they did all manner of great interviews that you have to hear up there. They were just a couple of tables away from us in the media center. Mac, of course, still meeting with coaches and execs and all the different people up at the Combine, getting the lowdown on this draft class and everything that's going on in the league. Buddy, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the weekend up there, and I'll see you soon.
Buck, appreciate you. See you, Lucas. See you, guys.
That's the main man, Mac. Now, we were talking about Combine location, and Mac brought up the idea of he'd love to see it in Nashville. Well, we have some news to that effect, so why don't we get to that? Coming up next with Friday Fire, some other good stuff to get to, too. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. All right, so we're going to do Friday Fire, as is the custom. We got a couple of different things to do. You can jump in if you like. 615-737-1045. What in sports gave you the good feels, good vibes this weekend? It could have been a sporting event. It could have been Dalton Connect's performance against Auburn, whatever you like. Friday Fire. Let's go ahead and do it. My Friday Fire is something we were just talking about with Coach Dave McGinnis. Kaharski, he's still up there in Indianapolis for the Combine, and there's a meeting today about potential sites for future Combine host cities. Now, this is something that the league decided that they were going to turn into more of a fan event, not outright, 600,000 people on Lower Broadway the way that the draft is, but they want more fan involvement. They want more money. Again, I tell you, the answer to all of your questions forever and always, money. 4 cities were a part of the initial discussion, but after the groundbreaking yesterday for the new Nissan Stadium, an official from Nashville and from the Titans were there for a part of a group hosted by the NFL to discuss the possibility of hosting the Scouting Combine here in Nashville. 4 other cities were a part of the conversation. Again, this is paulkaharski.com. It appears 4 cities were part of the visit, Las Vegas and Minneapolis, 2 of the others, Nashville included. The league has decided, this is a quote, the league has decided that they want to take a look at is it worth moving? They've invited several cities to Indy this week to look at it. And of course, we raised our hand and said we'd love to stage along and take a look and hopefully have a shot at doing something with it. This is Butch Spearden, the former president and CEO of the Nashville Convention and Visitors Center, who is representing the city as a consultant. So he's in Indy, too, apparently, evaluating this. Butch very much involved in all of the biggest and best events that we've had in the city of Nashville over the course of the last 25, 30 years.
Run through the cities one more time. I know you said Vegas, Nashville. What else?
Vegas, Nashville, Minneapolis, and the 4th is not listed. I assume it's Indy or L.A., but I don't know that to be certain. Indy, I think, is always going to be a part of the discussion.
So the Combine is so great for Indy because of how connected and centralized everything is, right?
And because you can get 400 MRIs done in Indianapolis in a day, and it's hard to do that.
It's easy to get. Everybody's going to the same places. It's easy to get to those places. You can walk to you can walk from whatever meeting room to the workouts at Lucas Oil, and it's not going to take you that long, and then you can walk to dinner afterwards.
Yep.
I've never been to Vegas. You have. How close is Allegiant Stadium to Vegas, or to everything going on, the Strip and everything?
Listen, Kirby, and Kirby exaggerates, but Kirby maintains that he walked 34 miles in 4 days in Las Vegas. But I will tell you, the Metro Rail system is not great. There's a million different things going on in Las Vegas that make it difficult to navigate. The NFL getting involved and blocking off certain sections of the Strip is going to only complicate that process for fan events and things like that. It almost, like for the draft, it almost felt like there were 2 different draft centers for Nashville, right? You had the East Bank and you had Lower Broadway. And there was a lot of stuff going on the East Bank that was fan-centric. There's a lot of stuff on Lower Broadway that was fan-centric too, but there was at least a clear division that made the pedestrian bridge such a critical part of that to separate things, to keep it logistically easy so you could get to the draft in some form or fashion from both sides of the city on either bank of the Cumberland. And still have, enough space to move and still keep it all within the same geographical footprint and, have some people out at Opryland to do, draft hits and stuff like that and have people at the Ryman or whatever the case may be. Minneapolis has the skywalks too.
Yeah, Minneapolis is connected, but with Nashville, I'm thinking about
Vegas is a disaster. Vegas would be the worst possible. Vegas and L.A. would be the worst possible place to move this thing.
But I don't hate the idea of, like, the Music City Center hosting all of the media stuff and meetings with prospects. And it's a little longer of a walk, but you can walk to Nissan Stadium.
Yes. From
the Music City Center. And, hell, I don't know when this would happen, but the new Nissan Stadium is essentially going to be a convention center as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be some I mean, can you imagine having the combine in the same building where the workouts are?
It would be great.
It'd be amazing.
And the bars and restaurants that you're going to, because you see the new Nissan Stadium is going to have the biggest rooftop bar apparently in the world.
Exactly. And then, or you could walk over the street to Lower Broad. Yeah, I think Nashville would be actually pretty decently set up for it.
Well, we are uniquely equipped. Again, Nashville is an NFL city, both proximity to the stadium, place to live, affordability, whatever the case may be. Anyway, so that's my Friday Fire. Lucas, what's yours? Because I have a second, and I'm going to wait.
Chiefsaholic.
Oh.
Chiefsaholic is under trial for being...
I'm so excited. I've been waiting 4 days to hear this audio.
So, a serial bank robber, if you don't know, the Chiefs fan that dresses up like a werewolf and finds himself on TV, has finally been arrested for his series of bank robberies. I'm going to stop talking and just let you hear his lawyer on the front steps of the courthouse in his opening comments with media.
From the beginning of this case, folks, the government has been blitzing, and Xavier's pocket was collapsing. But today, Xavier stepped into the pressure. He took responsibility for his actions. He stood up in court, humble and repentant, and admitted what he had done. Now, if I know anything about Xavier, and if the Chiefs Kingdom knows anything about Chiefsaholic, we know that he doesn't give up. We know that if he stumbled and he fell, he didn't let his knee touch the ground. And that's because he's capable of doing a great thing. And he knows that there's still hope. We still have a lot of work to do on his case, but Xavier wants everyone to know that he loves the Chiefs Kingdom, he loves Kansas City, and he hopes that you'll rally to his support. Thank you and God bless.
The football metaphors were flying all over the place.
It's so good.
The government is blitzing. His pocket is collapsing, and he's stepping up into the pressure.
Please stop.
And his knee will never touch the ground.
It's so bad.
Amazing. Amazing stuff from Chiefsaholic's lawyer. We know he never gives up because he continued to rob banks despite being on national television every time he went to a Chiefs game.
Correct.
And he is getting a ton of credit for admitting his wrongs, for standing up there and saying, yeah, I robbed those banks. Oh, he's so brave. Absolutely adored that media session from Chiefsaholic's lawyer. Keep the football metaphors coming.
Oh, okay.
What else? What else can we do?
All right.
Right?
Nothing else. I hate to follow Chiefsaholic's lawyer with this, but it's something that's very important to me and something that we're going to make a part of Friday Fire for basically the next couple of months. For those of you who've been longtime Zone listeners, you are familiar with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. You're familiar with the Visionaries of the Year campaign. This is something that Brent, Kayla, Dawn, Jonathan Hutton before. I know Mickey has participated in the Visionaries of the Year campaign. And this year, I'm going to do it because, one, it's a great cause. It's something that everybody's been personally affected by cancer in some form or fashion. And for me, Lucas, you know Reed Besh, who is the former producer of the Primetime Show before, God help me, they saddled me with Bert. Reed is a survivor of a specific time of, Hodgkin's lymphoma. And to see the way that he fought through it, to see his journey to come out better for it on the other side, to see the number of lives that he impacted, including myself. When Christina Ryan, Mickey's wife, asked me, because she's obviously been a big part of LLS for a long, long time, and Max Weisberg, who's working with them, I absolutely 100% jumped on the opportunity. But, this means that I need your help, right? This is why we're going to make it a part of Friday Fire each and every week. So Lucas is going to drop the link. I'm going to give that to him in the chat. We are going to try and raise as much money for this as humanly possible. The Install live show with Greg Cosell is going to be an LLS fundraising event. We've got other cool things that I've got planned throughout the course of the campaign to help raise as much money as humanly possible for blood cancer, treatment paths for survivors, for people who are working through this, for families affected by it. LLS is such an awesome organization. And so I'm excited for it. It's going to be a big challenge. I'm going to be harassing you guys to help me out a lot, but you always, always, always come through because, you care. And you're genuinely good people, even though I give some of you a hard time every once in a while. So we'll drop the number in the chat. I'll tweet it out myself at Buck Rising on Twitter. We'll keep you updated with the list of events. May 3rd is right now the biggest thing on the calendar for the LLS fundraising movement, the install, the live show at the Hutton Hotel, the analog venue. We're really excited to get Greg back in town for that and really excited to use it to raise money for an incredible cause to help do some good. So if you want to join us in our campaign to do good, we would appreciate that participation. 615-737-1045 is how you join for some Friday Fire. How about Brandon and Westmoreland next?
Hey, good evening or good morning to you guys. How are you?
We're great.
Well, hey, so this is very passionate for me. I spoke last Friday about this, and I was so close to winning some Bonnaroo tickets, and they went elsewhere. But I'm going to throw out the same Friday Fire because it's women in sports, man. And the reason why I want to express that to you is because I have 3 daughters. And I want them to be able to get recognition that they deserve. And I'm going to throw her name out there again because she's still balling. She's still able to set more records as the Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
We've all heard the stories and things like that. Congratulations to her. Keep balling out and keep getting that recognition. And also for what I've seen, and I could be wrong on this, but correct me if I'm wrong, the NCAA stripping the he-she's title from her for the swimming. The guy that dressed like a girl that tried to swim and take the rights from the girls, congrats to them for taking the titles from that guy because women need all the recognition that they can get in sports. That's my Friday Fire. Caitlin Clark, keep balling out. Women, don't be ashamed of what you are, and if you're in sports, get out there and ball and be ballers.
I appreciate the call, Brandon. I'm unfamiliar with the swimming situation, so I'll have to do some more research on that. But yeah, Caitlin Clark is always a role model, even if she lost to Indiana. You got to hold that L, Caitlin.
Heading to the WNBA, official now. So is she done for the season, or is she going to finish out the season?
No, but see, here's the thing. I'm not sure why. Like, I'm sure there's a reason that she had to declare right now because it did seem odd timing-wise to me. But Lucas,
she is going to finish the season.
Yeah. I don't know exactly. I mean, the WNBA draft, and forgive my ignorance here, the WNBA draft could be next week for all I know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
She declared, but because that's what I wasn't sure. Is she opting? I was curious.
No, not opting out. I think there's probably a timeline that they're required to declare by a certain point. It's an interesting discussion because she stands to make more money if she goes back to Iowa than she does in the WNBA, which is a different level of discourse that we, maybe we'll talk about that because, I mean, that's a real problem that NIL has created for the Professional Women's Basketball League, and I think Caitlin Clark is the best person to have that discussion around. Anyway, Will Levis talks to RG3. You're going to hear from your starting quarterback and what the league thinks of him coming up next.
It is 12:03. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Breaking news today in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles are releasing veteran safety Kevin Byard. The former Titan and former All-Pro was traded to Philly mid-season in 2023. The move saves the Eagles about $13 million in cap space. As the NFL scouting combine continues in Indy, defensive backs and tight ends working out at Lucas Oil Stadium today. It was quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers meeting with the media this morning. College hoops this weekend. Number 4 Tennessee is at 14th ranked Alabama. It's a matchup of the top 2 teams in the SEC standings. Tip-off at 7 p.m. You can hear the Vol Network call right here on The Zone. Vanderbilt at home hosting LSU, a 2:30 tip at Memorial Gym. And the Belmont Bruins wrap up the regular season. They host Evansville Sunday afternoon at the Curb Center, a 4 p.m. tip-off. Nashville Soccer Club back in MLS regular season play. A road trip to Colorado Rapids Saturday night for an 8:30 kickoff. Tune in live on the 104.5 The Zone app by selecting the Nashville SC live stream. Pre-game coverage starts at 8. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour already on this Friday. Show moving fast. Been a fast show all week long because we've been up in Indy. Combine stuff has carried us. Been a lot of news today, feels like. News continuing to come down. We mentioned that there was some reporting earlier from PK about Nashville as a NFL Combine host city. There's some additional information from Butch Spiriton, the former president of the CEO of Nashville Convention and Visitors Corp., who is acting as a consultant in Indy for Nashville and their potential and their interest and their capabilities of hosting the NFL Combine. Apparently, Bruce said of a Nashville Super Bowl, he believes it will be in 2029 or 2030. For me, this is the quote, for me, 2029, we'll be hungry. That's, I think, a lot further away than a lot of people would have envisioned, given that they very much expect and are trying to keep themselves on track to open this thing up before the 2027 NFL season. To wait, potentially 2 or 3 years after that, maybe you got to work out the kinks. But the NFL's been pretty willing to give it to cities that open new stadiums almost right away. Now, of the Super Bowl situation, Nashville could be a possible host in 2027, but more likely the first year would be 2028. The Titans are scheduled to move in 2027, provided that everything keeps on track right now. 2029 or 2030, are you surprised by that kind of a timeline for a potential Nashville Super Bowl?
Not really. This feels like where we're headed. I mean, it's a huge reason why teams are building new stadiums, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense that they're not going to have to wait around 10, 12 years before finally getting one.
No, but that they're having to wait, 2 or 3 after the stadium opens. That's probably longer than most people anticipated having to wait. Now, 2028, I think you let them run through a season for the first year before you let them host the league's biggest event on the calendar. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But, there's nothing wrong with, 2 seasons. It's just, I guess most people have, maybe I'm assuming more than most people are. I would have assumed that it would have been 2028, locked in, that there would have been some discussion, some backroom handshake between Amy Armstrong and the league. Said, hey, if we pull this off, 2028, right? That's ours. Anyway, I do think that there has been, and Brooks points this out, there has been a discussion around new stadiums that it has to be at least 2 years after they open before they can host a stadium. So I don't think that's too off track. I just think that's the first time anybody's put their name on 2029 or 2030 for an NFL for an NFL stadium or an NFL team opening a new stadium to then host the Super Bowl. So, just something to keep in mind. We're going to talk about Will Levis today because he did a podcast interview with Robert Griffin III. RG3 and the Ones is the name of the podcast. And Levis is a, would you call him polarizing? Mariota was a polarizing figure. Now, he was more polarizing locally than I think he was nationally. Tannehill has a degree of polarization, too, for different reasons. Is Will Levis a polarizing figure for NFL fans, not just Titans fans?
I don't know that Levis has done enough to warrant a strong opinion or another. Like, I think the most common opinion on Levis is, yeah, he's got the tools, but we'll see. To me, that doesn't really fall under polarizing. Polarizing is strong opinion one way or the other and on opposite ends of the spectrum, like a Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel's polarizing, right, with players, with fans, with media. Will Levis, I think it's very much, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. That to me does not fall under polarizing. As a prospect, maybe that's a different conversation.
He was one of the more, if not the most polarizing draft prospect, I think, that we talked about at the higher levels, right? But as a pro, I agree. It's much more, wait and see. We had Danny Heifetz on the radio show yesterday before you hear from Will Levis. Danny Heifetz of The Ringer, he writes the annual QB Commitment Index. It's a fascinating piece. I very much enjoy it. And it speaks to a larger narrative that NFL analysts around the league and people, coaches, executives around the league have about Will Levis. This was Danny Heifetz on the radio show in the third hour yesterday.
I respect that he won the team over with grit. And you're not going to like this comparison, but actually so did Daniel Jones in the playoff run in 2022. Daniel Jones went over the team, the locker room, in New York City because he was put his body on the line. He was like, Saquon got hurt, and Daniel Jones started trucking linebackers into the end zone in the contract year, and Daniel Jones risked and ultimately did end up injuring his neck, and people respected it. Will Levis obviously is putting himself out there and, like, getting crushed, doing comebacks, like, respect that. However, that gives you the hope, and it wins your locker room. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is winning games. And I was struck when, I could be wrong, but Brian Callahan's press conference, I can't keep track of what day it was. Was that yesterday?
No, it was like 3 days ago.
Okay.
It's okay.
I haven't been able to keep track of time since February 2020.
That's what Indy is. Time is a flat circle.
But he was asked about quarterbacks, and I want to say, could be wrong, I believe the first word that came out of his mouth with, like, what are you looking for quarterback? He said processing. We'll see with Will Levis. Like, frankly, we'll see.
It wasn't there yet.
I think he said processing, pace, touch. We'll see.
Yeah.
But you know what? I've never been wrong on an NFL player, ever, than I have more than Josh Allen. And I'm kind of done writing anyone off. At the end of the day, it's like the draft is the beginning and your development. So I'd say, honestly, Will Levis's career begins now. Yeah. And he has to see how much he can grow.
Which is completely fair analysis, that Will Levis's career actually begins now. He is, in fact, the present. He was the third-string quarterback when the season started last year, and then he was immediately put into the starting spot 8 weeks into the year after Tannehill had the high ankle sprain. Now, it speaks to a larger discussion point about the level of how sold the league is on Will Levis versus how sold Titans fans are on Will Levis. And Lucas brought it up to start the show. Of course, you are completely entitled and justified in being excited about Will Levis and him in a Brian Callahan-led system and him with better skill position players and him with theoretically better offensive linemen. All of those things are fun to think about, but there is a realistic level discourse that I think, just like Coach Mack says, keep your powder dry about him because he's still got a lot of work to do. Now, this was Levis with RG3 talking about the team dynamic and how it potentially could change without Derrick Henry on the roster. Because, of course, without Derrick, it becomes much more quarterback-driven. This was Will Levis with RG3 and the Ones.
You always play to your players' strengths, and our strength is we don't know yet if it's going to be Derrick or not. And a lot of the stuff we did was because we had Derrick. So, whoever it's going to be is, Tajay is a great player, and he did a lot of different things for us. And I think that he's a back to get it done on all downs. And he's got an exciting skill set. So I'm excited for him to continue to develop. And I know that he made a lot of fans happy last year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this year too.
A lot of the things that we did last year, we did because we had Derrick Henry, which is, of course, the thing that we all know. So how they adjust to that, with a new coaching staff, is going to be the thing that Brian Callahan, as we've talked about since he was hired, ultimately is judged on. So we can talk about Will Levis. How sold are you on the Titans quarterback here moving into 2024? 615-737-1045. Given that we already heard from quarterbacks earlier today at the Combine, there's also a discussion that I think is worth getting into. Would you rather be picked first overall or go to the best possible landing spot as a prospect? Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams both spoke about that earlier today. You'll hear from them coming up next. Welcome back to the show. First overall or best landing spot? What would you want if you were an NFL prospect? Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels among the quarterbacks speaking today, wide receivers and running backs doing their media availability too. You'll see the defensive backs and tight ends participate in drills today. Linebackers and defensive linemen went yesterday. The rest of the position groups, including the offensive line, will go through the weekend. So we'll keep you updated on that and certainly recap it on Monday. But if you were posed with Caleb Williams' situation, I was watching Good Morning Football today. Tom Pelissero was interviewing Caleb Williams, I think, after he had finished his podium discussion. And they said, how important is it to you, or where do you want to go, basically, was one of the final questions, right? The same question that Brock Bowers got from Mike Florio a couple of weeks ago, and he said, yeah, Tennessee would be fine. Caleb Williams said, who's ever picking number one? It's been important for me to go number one my entire life. Who's ever picking number one, I'd be happy to play for him. And right now, that's the Bears. We'll see who ends up picking first overall in this draft. The Bears are in a great position with 1 and 9 in the top 10. Then there's Jaden Daniels, the LSU quarterback, who's by most evaluations the third best prospect at the position. Jaden Daniels said today that he would prefer to go the best situation for him. That he doesn't want it. It's not as important for him to be the first quarterback picked off the board or to go in the top 10 or whatever. He just wants to go to the right spot. And Lucas, I wish that more people would answer that question that way. My inclination, if I was a prospect, and listen, there's generational money on the line, even in these rookie first-round contracts. And the difference between first overall, top 5, top 10, and the rest of the first round, then you get into day 2 and day 3 picks, obviously. Life-changing money. If you're a college kid, and listen, Caleb Williams made how much last year? $10 million in NIL? Or, excuse me, in the last 2 years he's made $10 million in NIL?
I don't know.
There was a report from The Athletic. I'll look it up here in just a second. But he had made a considerable amount of money in the last 2 years at USC. So he's already got a decent bank account, right? And I don't want to hate on Caleb Williams for it being a life goal of his to go to be the first overall pick in the NFL draft. That's admirable. That means that you are the best player among 250, 260 total players that will go in the draft. That means something. You've worked your entire life to achieve it, and that would be a culminating moment. Now, what happens after that? It's usually the worst teams at the top of the draft order. That's not the best position. Geography matters in these guys' success or failure rates. So Jaden Daniels answering the question that way makes me like Jaden Daniels' approach more, even though I understand beyond just the money why Caleb Williams would answer whoever's picking number one. I'm not knocking him for it. I just think I like Jaden Daniels' answer better.
I do too, but Jaden Daniels also has more to gain by answering questions the right way than Caleb Williams. Like, Caleb Williams can say that. Caleb Williams is going to go number one, right? Like, ultimately, it's not going to hurt Caleb Williams that he answered the question that way.
No.
Meanwhile, Jaden Daniels, we all can agree. I know Dan Orlovsky said that's his favorite quarterback, and we can talk about that, but we all agree Jaden Daniels is not going to be the number one overall pick in the draft. I'm sure Jaden Daniels' people are aware of this, and in turn, Jaden Daniels is aware of this. So why would it make sense for Jaden Daniels, when asked that layup of a question, best landing spot or number one pick?
Well, now he wasn't given the choice there. It's like, is it all of these guys, and you've been at these things, they're asked, is it important for you to go in the top 5?
Right.
Is it important for you to go in the top 10? And that's the way that he answered the question. And he said, it's more important for me to go to the best spot.
It's the best way to answer that question for Jaden Daniels, but it would benefit him none to go up there and say, no, it would be more important for me to go number one. Meanwhile, Caleb Williams is pretty secure in the fact that he's going to be the first name called.
Sure, and I want to make sure it's clear. Like, they didn't ask Jaden Daniels about going before, like being the first quarterback picked.
Yeah.
He was asked, what do you value more, being a top pick or how much do you value being a top pick? And he answered, I value more going to the best spot, because we talked about this. Drake May, Williams, Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is the most high variance prospect, depending on where he goes, of the three, right? Somebody could really misuse somebody could really misuse Jaden Daniels. Somebody could put Jaden Daniels in a position that is not best equipped to his skill set. Somebody could derail Jaden Daniels' career, I think, in a much quicker fashion than you might the other two who are more prototypically, who are viewed as the more prototypical quarterback prospects, even though the mobile quarterback prospect should be the more prototypical prospect at this point.
Well, they're all mobile in some way.
Sure, but Jaden Daniels is a different level.
Yeah, he's a true dual threat, 100%. He's the best runner out of the entire bunch, but they all fit what you want in a modern prototypical quarterback one way or the other. In my mind, they're all really athletic players that can extend plays, that can hurt you with their legs.
But so you disagree that of the three, he's the highest variance?
Oh, no. I'm not disagreeing with you there. Yeah.
So as the draft nears and as Caleb Williams goes through this process and the rest of the quarterback situation plays out the way that it does, I am so interested to see who comes up there to get Caleb Williams, or if the Bears just say bleep it. Because we've talked about it as a foregone conclusion that Chicago would trade out. There's too much value to be gained there. Now, that's assuming that they would have kept Justin Fields, and that's no safe assumption right now.
You're saying a foregone conclusion that they would get rid of the number one pick.
Trade out. And I know, for example, Washington, who's sitting there at 2, who just hired Cliff Kingsbury, who spent a year working with Caleb Williams as their offensive coordinator, pass game coordinator there, quarterbacks coach there. You're clearly seeing teams put themselves in position. If something were to happen, I don't know that Caleb Williams would fall past one. It doesn't seem like a very likely scenario. Who is going to prioritize that number 1 overall pick, if at all, and would Chicago listen to them? Because they're always going to listen.
I think Chicago trading out would be a mistake. I think Chicago should take Caleb Williams.
Keep it simple, stupid.
How rare is it? I know Carmen Vitale talked about this week, that the Bears are set up probably a little better than people think. Like, I think people just look at it and still say, yeah, it's the stinky Bears. They've been terrible for years. They'll continue to be terrible. But the Bears have, at this point, bringing in DJ Moore and Darnell Wright with the top 10 pick at right tackle. Like, the Bears are starting to build out a roster that can compete on offense and plugging in, basically starting from scratch with a rookie quarterback contract, with a quarterback that is a far better prospect than Justin Fields ever was coming out of college, to me, is a no-brainer. And I know the value you could get if you trade out of that number 1 pick, but you can add draft capital by trading Justin Fields. So you can beef up your draft capital, stay there, get the best quarterback prospect that we've seen in quite some time, and put him into a roster that could be ready to compete for the NFC North if Caleb Williams truly is special out of the gate. I think it would be a huge mistake to trade back.
Wasn't Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson an obvious decision?
Yeah, sure.
Aiden Hutchinson should have been an obvious decision for the Jags.
Yes. I remember being so perplexed at that draft. Like I get upside and all these things, but I just
by percentage chance, you're more likely to be right, and the Bears take Caleb Williams and they move Justin Fields and everybody moves on with their day. I would say that that's far more likely the scenario, but I'm not going to guarantee to you that NFL teams are going to do the most obvious thing because it's the most obvious thing to be done.
Again, Aiden Hutchinson would have been the more obvious thing. It wasn't that hard for me. Who was the better player in college? Aiden Hutchinson. Okay, take Aiden Hutchinson. They didn't do that. Tried to overthink the rest of the room, and that pick doesn't look great in hindsight. But we're 3 years into the Justin Fields experience. What can anybody say anything definitively about Justin Fields?
No.
About what he is as a franchise quarterback? 3 years in? I mean, to me, then that answers the question in and of itself. Because you're going to have to pay Justin Fields very, very soon.
615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Caleb Williams, by the way, was asked about, for example, wanting an ownership stake in the team that drafted him. There was a report from Sports Business Journal that NFL owners voted to prohibit non-family employees from taking equity in teams. You have Pro Football Talk explaining the timing of a vote, reporting that representatives of Caleb Williams, the almost assured top pick in this upcoming draft, had broached the topic. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers had done the same thing. Tom Brady is now a minority owner in the Raiders and was probably was pushing for an ownership stake in the Dolphins while still trying to play for them in worming his way out of Tampa Bay that ultimately did not come to fruition. Caleb Williams was asked this question not just by us, by media today, but he was also asked this question by scouts, of course, in meetings and things like that. Apparently, he was completely in shock that was happening or being said because he was the person saying that. You remember who the person messaging that Caleb Williams would be interested in an ownership stake in the team?
Was it his dad?
It was his dad.
Yeah.
His dad. Carl Williams has talked about the NFL rookie wage scale openly. He's talked about the draft declaration deadline openly. He's talked about eligibility rules, medical testing, the way players are paid. He did an interview with GQ where he basically just pooped on the entire draft process. Quote, the worst possible team, the worst organization in the league because of their desire for parity gets the first pick. Yes, correct. I understand that it incentivizes losing to an extent, and that frustrates people. But yes, that's how the NFL successfully keeps their parity model. Now, it doesn't work out the best for the prospects, sure. Trevor Lawrence is still trying to dig his way into competency in Jacksonville, even though they've won a playoff game with him recently. You look at the situation for the Patriots, for the Bears, for the Niners, who traded up in those drafts to get those top quarterback prospects, and that's been anything but a guarantee. This is not the QB doing the messaging, though. It's the QB's dad doing the messaging, which is not an uncommon phenomenon. It's not the first time a parent has meddled, too strong a word. He's just looking out for the best interest of his son. I don't want to call that meddling. He just injected himself into the discussion, we'll say. And that Caleb Williams is having to answer questions about it, though, is the unfortunate part. 615-737-1045 is the number. Taylor H., you can also interact in the chat if you would like. Taylor H. on YouTube says, I despise parents interfering in athletes' stuff. Yeah, I don't like helicopter parents either. But, some of the most successful athletes of all time have parents who are and I'm not saying that this is a good thing, right? And I'm not going to judge how people parent their children or get the best out of their kids or whatever, how they properly motivate their kids. I don't have kids. Kids are not something that's any part of my life. So far be it for me to judge. But I will say that there has to be some degree of helicopter parenting if you've got an actual future professional athlete that you're trying to help get the best out of their situation. Not
who comes to mind when you think
helicopter parent?
Sure. I guess
like in modern football?
Yeah, just a parent that was front and center alongside the star quarterback or star NFL player.
He's retired, but Larry Fitzgerald's dad was always a part of the discussion. Always, always, always. Everything around Larry.
Lamar's mom as his agent in the draft process.
She's never really been out there.
No,
publicly.
She's not. I remember he got ripped for that.
Sure.
Right? In the draft process.
Yeah, and that's worked out swimmingly from Lamar, and he doesn't have to give up 10% or 1% of his, $200+ million contract.
Just about everything Lamar has done that he's gotten ripped for as far as handling his businesses has worked out swimmingly for him.
Lamar, turns out they know what they're doing.
The Mannings for obvious reasons.
Yeah, but those aren't helicopter parents.
No, Archie stays out of the way.
I'm having trouble coming up with one glaring one. Because, I do think that people give that to Archie because of because of the way that Eli manipulated the situation, or that they manipulated the situation for Eli.
Cam Newton's dad was in the news a lot when the whole thing was happening with Auburn and the Scam Newton thing, and Auburn paying for his services and, just outbidding, I think it was Mississippi State when Cam was a JUCO prospect back in 2010. But that faded after he dominated at Auburn and got to the NFL.
Yeah, but I can't think of, in the NFL, because now people are saying LeVar Ball and this, that, and the other. Okay, that's fine. Those are the obvious ones. But in the NFL, I'm having trouble, the Bosa kids, right? Their parents aren't overt. They're not out there on a regular basis. I'm having trouble thinking of a player in recent memory that fits this bill. And there's always parents who are, too much on Twitter. And for example, when Christian Fulton was having his struggles, I know there was a lot of back and forth with his parents on social media, which I thought was just terrible for fans going at parents of kids, because Christian is still like 26 or whatever, and antagonizing people who are just there to stick up for their kid.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the internet is screaming at them, "No, say that your son sucks at football. Say it, you coward."
Yeah. I want you to say it. His mom's not going to say he sucks on social media. Stop it, please.
Which is the thing that makes me want to take a drill bit to my temple about Twitter, but whatever.
If that was me, I would walk into my parents' house, I would take their cell phone, and I would delete Twitter off of it and just hand it back to them.
Well, because it is a natural reaction. Like, every once, I've done a lot better job about this over the course of the last couple of years, but like, I used to go at everybody that responded to me. Anything that I felt like was not construed the way properly that I was trying to get it delivered, like if they took issue with me, I would argue with people way, way too much on Twitter. It's a natural human reaction. And then at a certain point, you realize, oh, those people, none of this actually matters. These people don't matter on in your mentions. Like, it's just, not to say that you guys don't matter like that, but it's not real. It's not the real world. It's just something done to antagonize intentionally. Professor Existentialist is saying that Kelsey's mom, no, she's not a helicopter parent, though. She gets to be a part of the Campbell's Chunky commercials. The one, and maybe it's just because I've got recency bias and I just watched this documentary on Amazon Prime, but Barry Sanders' dad is obviously somebody who people will remember very much. I have a hard time thinking of real, like, out there helicopter parents, though, in recent memory. 615-737-1045. You can join the discussion. Let's go with Steven in Nashville first.
Buck.
Yo.
Thank you for taking my call, man.
Yeah.
I can't think of any either. I was sitting here trying to think of them as I was holding going. I think Manning would be the biggest one, and it wasn't that he helicoptered so much as he just didn't let his son go where he was drafted.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a big medal. Anyway, what percentage of number one picks were quarterbacks? Or what? How many quarterbacks have been taken number one in the draft? 24. Right? What percentage were busts? You can look it up. I mean, everybody's got their own definition of bust. And the reason why I'm saying that is 30% of your rosters are first-round picks, 30% are rounds 2 and 3. The rest rounded out.
Yeah.
I think you know what you got in Justin Fields. It could be the coaching he's not had. You know, I'd much rather stick with Justin Fields than Caleb Williams. And just because you don't know what you really got in any of these guys. It's a crapshoot. The draft is a crapshoot, right? Would you agree with that?
No, it's the most most imperfect science. I mean, in any sport,
right?
The NBA, the NFL, like drafting, people say it's the most important position in any sport, and people still can't figure out how to nail quarterbacks.
Exactly. That's my point. I think you know what you got in Justin Fields. If I'm Chicago, I build around him. Plain and simple. They're loaded if you look at their draft. And they're loaded. Very, very similar to where we are, I believe, as the Titans. I think we got a lot more needs, glaring needs. But that was my point, is just to say there's 24 quarterbacks have been taken, but it really is a crapshoot. And if you know what you got in Fields, stick with it. Roll with it. Thanks, Buck.
Thank you. Appreciate the call, Stephen. Do you disagree? Well, I mean, I know you disagree.
Yeah, I don't think you know what you have in Fields.
I would be more in that camp than I would be in Stephen's camp, on Fields specifically.
Yeah.
No, I'm willing to hear the argument on coaching, for sure. I'm shocked that Matt Eberflus is still in Chicago, even though they got rid of both their coordinators and are bringing and have brought in new people. I guess the issue is Justin Fields as a lesser-known commodity, because I would argue that Caleb Williams is a more defined. I mean, I guess I can't do that because he's not played a single down in the NFL, so that's not a fair comparison for me to do. The issue with Fields is the money, more than anything. He's getting ready to be in the tax bracket of a second contract quarterback. Now, Lucas, there's nothing to keep them from Jordan Loving this thing. Jordan Love got a 1-year deal. They said, hey, bud, that we're going to put you in position. This is going to be your offense. You're the starting quarterback, and we'll figure it out beyond that, because he was brought in a unique situation under Aaron Rodgers and really never got the opportunity to show it. Jordan Love's about to be a $45 to $50 million a year player. He's earned that contract. You could do that with Justin Fields. Find a cost-effective solution somewhere in the middle, if he's willing to do that. He may not be willing to do that. And then you've passed on Caleb Williams for Justin Fields, who probably doesn't want to do that. It's not an easy decision. I don't think it's a layup decision. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. We'll get to a few we've got hanging around. Coming up next, Lucas also has a 6-month late review of the Barbie movie, which is, of course, pressing at the top of the mind as we do capital J journalism around here. Last segment, I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. End of the week, been a fun one. It's good to be back in Nashville. Obviously, we'll recap all the wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, offensive linemen that get into the drills. I guess tight ends and defensive backs, too, since they're going today after we're off the air, though Blaine and Mickey in 3HL. We'll talk about it. I'm going to be on 3HL this afternoon at 3:20, so we'll circle back around to that. Perhaps we'll talk some more prospects then with the squad. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045 is the number. Dirty Bird up first.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to let the Bears fans know out there, if they make the mistake of giving my Falcons and getting rid of Desmond Ridder and we get Justin Fields, having Justin Fields with Cordell Patterson, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, I do think Justin Fields will make a bang with Atlanta. So I want him. So definitely, if you guys in Chicago don't want him, us guys in Atlanta will trade you for Desmond Ridder any time of the week.
It's been bleak in Atlanta for a while. I don't blame you. Thank you for the call. Is this our Robert in Nashville? All right, perhaps Robert in Nashville has brought us another scouting report.
Hey, Buck, how you doing, buddy?
Hey.
I'm up here putting in this GM work. I got a guy that I got to tell you about. He probably won't interview very well. If he hadn't eaten, you know what I mean. His name Jim Sasquatch. He's 8'2", 680. And you talk about a mauler. I mean, this guy, he can play left tackle, guard, center, all at once. He does have a shaving problem, and he doesn't smell too good. But man, he's the guy. He should go in the top of the first round.
Robert, I heard some scouts talking about him, though. He can be kind of light with his hands in pass pro. That's not what you want. You don't want him to be susceptible to bull rush. 680 pounds, one would think would help with him with that, but I think he's been coasting.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you don't piss him off, he'll probably do pretty good, I think.
Okay.
But he's killed 4 defensive ends in the past 3 games, so they're kind of scared of him anyway. I don't think they'll give him any problems. They do have a hard time getting around all his hair, but he's an elusive man. It took me forever to find that guy. No wonder they've got shows about finding him. But hey, y'all have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the call, Robert. I already likes Jack Link's beef jerky, too.
I have to give him a look. Do some research.
Wayne in Nashville will be our last phone call of the day. Don't forget, though, Blaine and Mickey 3HL after that, so you can still jump in on the phone lines. Wayne.
Hello, gentlemen. Hope you're having a blessed Friday. I'm also blessed to know the future, right? The Tennessee Volunteers basketball team will win the national championship. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Oh, just a bold prediction ahead of the Alabama game.
Just dropping the mic.
Not ready for not conference champions, regular season, not conference tournament champions, because that's right around the corner. No, he's out there with national champion.
Can get good value on that, Wayne, if you want to put your money where your mouth is.
Who's currently the favorite to win the March Madness?
Good question. Who would you say right now?
Probably UConn.
I'd say probably UConn.
Or Houston is really good. I bet UConn is still the betting favorite. But Houston, as the number 1 team in the country, is, God, it just makes me so mad every time I see Kelvin Sampson out there.
At the moment, UConn, the favorite, plus 550.
Yeah.
Houston is plus 700. Purdue is plus 750.
Gross.
Then Arizona at plus 1,300. And Tennessee also plus 1,300.
Big game tomorrow, 7 o'clock the tip. We have it on the Zone, yes?
That's correct. Okay. Vol Network coverage at 6:30.
You can hear the Vol Network coverage of Tennessee at Alabama as they continue their pursuit of a regular season conference title. Polls, please. Oh, wait.
All right, Dan.
Wait, stop, Sling Blade.
What?
Put him back in the box.
Well, you can't just put Sling Blade back in the box.
I don't know that we've ever done that before. I wasn't sure that it could be done. Now that I know that I have that power, it's going to be a problem. I need a 30-second review 6 months late of the Barbie movie because you saw it for the first time.
Less than 30 seconds. I loved it. I'm not going to lie to you. I was giggling the entire movie. Ryan Gosling just absolutely. Did you see it?
I saw like the first 30 minutes of it and then I fell asleep.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it, man. It It was meta. I like the humor. Margot Robbie crushing as always. Kate Middleton, not Kate Middleton, not the princess, but oh goodness, Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie, amazing. Michael Cera as Alan, amazing. I loved it.
There's only one Alan.
I loved it. I didn't understand why people were so worked up about it. I thought it was just funny and good. And like, God forbid, it's deeper than just a movie about dolls, which I guess is what people expected, and they walked out furious that it meant anything.
Listen,
but I was entertained by it thoroughly.
You know what I got told the other day? My mom wanted to take their grandkids. So, long story short, my stepdad has other children, so there are grandkids that are not, my grandkids or my mom's grandkids. But she still, obviously is Gigi. She's grandma to them. And so she wanted to take the girls to see the Barbie movie. And apparently the father did not want the girls to see the Barbie movie because it emasculates men too much, which I thought was one of the funniest, dumbest things I have ever heard in my life. So not to put anybody on blast, but if your masculinity is threatened by the Barbie movie, I would ask you to reevaluate some things in your life, okay?
Like, it definitely talks about, like, gender roles and things like that, but I didn't feel emasculated watching the movie. I thought it was a funny movie.
You are nuanced that way. Your masculinity is not threatened. The only time that I see you scared is when I start to talk about sex on the air. Polls, please.
It's just so unnecessary.
All right, Dan.
You're just repressed.
I reckon I'll talk about a poll update. This is Carl Childers. There's a young feller. I think he's got the final numbers. Here's the producer of the Buck Rising show. A feller named Lucas Panzeker. Got any mustard and biscuits?
Rapid fire.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. If you were a top QB prospect, what would be more important to you? Landing at the best spot or going number one overall? 89% say landing at the best spot.
Yeah, I'd probably take the money and run, but that's me.
Which NFL Combine workout are you most looking forward to watching? Michael says Roma Dunze, the wide receiver. There's not like that one prospect that everybody's honed in on, like Anthony Richardson, where it's like, oh, this dude's going to break records, and he did. But I don't feel like we have that this year. Like, who do we expect to have the best 40 time? Which is just naturally one of the first things that we look at.
We talked about that yesterday. The Georgia tackle Mims for me just because he's a freak.
Yep. What was your first reaction to seeing a proposed 14-team college football playoff format? CT saying it's starting to seem more and more like basketball. Rick says just go to 32, be done with it, use most of the bowl games. Mr. Donkey says why not 20 teams? Nick says Josh Pate was right, bring back the BCS.
It's too late. It's too late to put it all, just like it's too late to put Sling Blade back in the box. Too late to put the CFP back in the box.
And would you want to see Kevin Byard back with the Titans in 2024? 50-50.
Really?
50-50, yes and no.
I'm surprised it's that split. Okay. I'm in the no category. It's nothing personal against KB. I just think that, that experience is done and had its time here.
And those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Blaine and Mickey are coming up next. I'm on with 3HL at 3:20, so I'll talk to you again then. Have a great weekend. Primetime Sunday night.